Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to another edition of Sunday School. Sunday School presented to you by our good friends over at Duck Camp. We'll tell you more about Duck Camp coming up later on in this program. But I do want to get into some of my notes, actually. I know this is a bit delayed, but I want to get to some of the notes that I had from the open practice. Now, I went and videoed like 60-something plays, and essentially I was looking for what I can extrapolate, right, from that spring open practice or spring showcase and what it could foreshadow about Muschamp's philosophy and Muschamp's scheme, how he is going to, this utilize his weapons on defense with Texas. And I came basically to my theory about ag indicators is what I call them. This is basically, there are certain indicators on defense that will show how a defensive play caller wants to articulate or express their aggression. And so I got 6 of these, is what I call aggression indicators. And I'm sure maybe there are some other specific schemes and specific concepts that probably fall into these categories, but I came up with 6. So it's blitz rate, stunt rate, simulated pressure rate, single high rates in coverage, right? So we got a single high safety, coverage, man rates. All right, how often you play man coverage and how often you play press man coverage. Those are 6. So basically, blitz is when you send at least 5 defenders. All right, at least 5. If it's fewer than 5, I don't consider it a blitz. That's just my definition. Some people have a different definition. That's what I've learned throughout my football career. You send at least 5, that's a blitz. If it looks like a blitz, smells like a blitz, feels like a blitz, but actually isn't a blitz, maybe they show 6 guys up front, and then maybe they end up dropping the edge and sending a guy from the second or the third level, but it's only 4 guys. I call that a sim pressure. That's a simulated pressure. All right. Feels like a blitz, smells like a blitz, feels like a blitz, all that, right? Looks like one, but it actually isn't one. You only sending 4 guys, but you're trying to disrupt and you're trying to confuse the pass protection. And stunts are just twists and stunts up front. So games that you play up front, right? With your defensive line and your defensive front. So that's it in a nutshell. So I went and looked at these, basically looking at the open practice. 63 plays is what I ended up recording, and I reviewed these 63 plays to find out how often in the spring showcase open practice at Texas blitz, stunt, have simulated pressures, play man, play press, then play single high. And the reason single high is considered aggressive because you play 2 high safeties and you're trying to prevent big plays. And usually you're going to do that by taking a player away from the front and going to add that player to the coverage. And that almost, by definition is you being less aggressive. You're being more passive in your approach. Single high safeties means you're bringing an extra guy, extra defender down into the box, and single highs, usually your main coverage, your cover 1 is a single high coverage, cover 3 is a single high coverage. All right, so there you go. That's how it breaks it down. So I went and looked at Texas rates of these aggression indicators, right, ag indicators, and where it would rank, right? So this thought experiment, if that spring open practice was a real game and I was charting the game and looking at these ag indicators, where would Texas rank? All right, among the national, among their national peers, if you will, in college football in those areas. So first, look at PK last year. So in those ag indicators, let's look at where the defense is starting from. Blitz rate last year, 28%. You were 95th in the country. Your stunt rate last year, 16%. You were 3rd in the country. Your sim pressure rate last year, 22%. You were 59th in the country. Single high rates, you actually were one of the national leaders in single high defenses. You had top 5 cover 3 rate in the country. So that was actually the only ag indicator where you were one of the national leaders in that area. Man rate, 28%, much higher than it was in 24 when Texas was hovering around 17 to 20% in man coverage rate. They're 28%, that's 49th. So that's actually, that's pretty high, but still doesn't make you a national leader necessarily in that category. And your press rates, you were at 10% press rate, where you had your corners playing press coverage 10% of the time. Now, it's hard to find national kind of averages, and also hard to find national rates of press and bump and run coverage. Not even Pro Football Focus really keeps that stat and makes it available. But I did look at press rates for corners who are coming out in this upcoming draft, or sorry, this past draft in 2026. And the the 10% rate of press coverage for Texas for their corners, for Malik Muhammad and Jalen Gilbo, that's what I could find. Only 9 cornerbacks out of the 43 cornerbacks who I looked at coming out in that draft, only 9 cornerbacks had a lower press rate and bump and run rate than Malik Muhammad and Jalen Gilbo. So kind of just giving you a little bit of context. Texas relatively low in pressure rate. You probably know that just from the eye test. So looking at Muschamp's defense, or at least trying to foreshadow Muschamp's defense, here's what I was able to extrapolate from, the spring open practice. And then, like I said, with this thought experiment, hypothetically, if I'm going to look at that spring open practice as a game with those 63 plays, what were the rates of aggression in terms of those ag indicators? So your blitz rate ended up being 30%. So that would be up to, you're at 28%. Your blitz rate in that spring open practice was 30%. A lot of interior blitzes too. A lot of interior blitzes with linebackers from the second level. Makes a lot of sense, by the way, because Rasheem Biles at Pitt, they were one of the national leaders in box blitz rate, in six-man pressure rates. So you want to use Rasheem Biles in that manner as a guy that's attacking downhill. That's what Muschamp seemed to be doing more of, or at least seemed to be doing a lot of, I should say, in that spring showcase, open practice. So looks like your blitz rates may increase. I think your blitz rates will definitely increase on the Muschamp. There's no doubt about that. Stunt rate. I got him at almost a 24% stunt rate in that spring open practice. That also would be up. You were at 16.8% under PK, or at least last season under PK. And that was probably the most aggressive defense PK has had, was actually last season, where I think Sark was probably putting some pressure on him, like, hey, I want to see more aggression. I want to see us dictate the terms more. I'd like to see us, force the issue. And we know PK was about organic pressure, organic disruption, organic chaos. Muschamp's not that. Muschamp he wants to manufacture chaos, manufacture pressure, and manufacture disruption, which is why you're going to get a lot of these ag indicators increasing. So your stunt rate is going to increase. And I think your stunt rate should go up a lot. One of the big I would say macro conversations right now at college football level and at the NFL level. And Sark was asked about this on the Get Got podcast, actually, about O-line development, how it's suffering at the NFL level, at the college level. O-line development's never been worse. And you got the transfer portal, so you got a lot of turnover on O-lines, and everybody knows continuity and cohesion are huge on the offensive line. You got to work as a unit. You got to be hive-minded. And now you got a lot of turnover, and development is probably as worse as it's been on the O-line at the highest levels of football, maybe ever in the history of the game. And that's, like I said, that's coming from NFL conversations. Like I said, Sark talked about it on the podcast, and he pretty much agreed. There are a lot of reasons for that, right? You're taking away a lot of the padded practices, taking away a lot of the practices period, but no contact at practices. That's how the big guys get their work in, get their fundamentals down, get their technique down, and having less and less time to do that. Anyway, so getting back to it, I think stunt rates should increase, because you're trying to confuse blocking schemes. You're trying to confuse pass protection. And these offensive lines, they don't work as well, especially early on in the season as a unit, because there is a lot of turnover, because development has been a problem. If you want to confuse blocking schemes and force offensive linemen to have to work together and force them to have to communicate, forcing miscommunication, twists and stunts in games up front. And I would do a lot of it if I was Muschamp. And you have the personnel to do it. You got really versatile defensive linemen who can play multiple shades, right? You got your Lance Jacksons of the world. You can move him around. You can move Colin Simmons around as well. You got guys like, Alex January, who I think can play multiple shades up front for you. Justice Terry's going to be one of those guys that can play multiple shades up front. With all that, you want to do a lot of twists and stunts, especially when you're that athletic on the defensive front. So that increase. Sim pressure rate is one of the things that did not actually show an increase based on the charting that I did from the spring showcase. You only had a 15.8% sim pressure rate for PK last season. He was about 22%. So sim pressure, I think it will increase over the number that I got from the spring showcase, but I still think it'll be relatively low because I think your blitz rates will be higher, your stunt rates will go up too. I think the sim pressure rate should increase over the 22% that you saw in the PK in 2025. But like I said, I did not get that. That was not foreshadowed, I should say, in the spring showcase. Single high rates. PK, like I said, had one of the highest single high rates at playing a single high safety in all of the country. Texas was one of the national leaders. Texas was at 62% with a single high safety in that spring showcase defensively. I think that's probably about what you're going to get. Honestly, I don't expect them. Now, they could end up being, a heavy single high team as Texas was in 25, but I think you'll get more diversity with the coverages. And I think you'll get a little bit more two high shells just in case they're playing two-man coverages, or at least they want to incorporate a little bit more quarters coverage. Texas went to heavy cover 3 and played more cover 1, as I said last season too. So you were probably close to 70+% single high rate last season. So I think 60, 64, 65% is probably what I would guess. If I'm guessing your single height rate is going to be in 2026 on the Muschamp, it'll probably be around 60 to 65%. That was something a clue that you could gather, I think, from the spring showcase. Man rates. Now, this is something I've been saying for years. Texas wants to play more man. I'm not, Black Stradamus there, Sarkis stated publicly, I want to play more man coverage. I want to play tighter coverage. And I think they want to play more press man coverage. Now, I got that just from looking at the athletes they're recruiting at corner, right? Your Kobe Blacks of the world, you big corners, Kate Phillips of the world, you got big physical long corners, look like Legion of Boom corners. You don't want to waste that frame. You want to play bumper run coverage. And Muschamp has said multiple times, we like to get our hands on guys. And he's been asked, will they play more press man? He said he thinks they can. He thinks they can. I don't think he knows for sure. I think he'll know for sure after training camp, after he watches his DBs go up against Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo and Emmitt Mosley. They didn't have the opportunity to do that during the spring. I think once he sees, can they handle those guys? If you can handle this receiving core playing a lot of press man, then okay, we can go with this into SEC play and even versus Ohio State, because their receiving core is that good. That's why I think he says, I think that's why he is a little bit hesitant to guarantee they're going to play more press. He believes they can because they have the athletes to do it. So man rates, I got Texas over 50% man coverage rate in that spring showcase. And just to give you some perspective on that, I mean, that would put them pretty much in the top 10 highest man coverage rates in the country. And press rate, they were also, you talking about press rate, Texas was close to 60% press rate. And based on the sample size that I had of those 63 plays, Texas over 60% press rate. So which means that's going to have you also among the top 10, top 5 highest rates of press coverage in the country. Some of the highest rates I could find, I found 57% press rate, 42%, 43%. I mean, you would essentially be one of the highest press coverage teams, or one of the most, I would say, stubborn press coverage teams in the country. And that would be a monumental shift in terms of how Texas is approaching their coverage. So I'm not sure if they just went with man coverage and press man in the showcase, because it is simple. It is easy. You don't want to show a lot. You're not trying to show disguise. You're not trying to get deep into your bag in a spring showcase. So yeah, your simplest thing to do is like, guys, we're just playing man and we're playing press man. I think there's a little bit more to it. But like I said, both of those numbers would put Texas among the top 5, top 10 most heavy man and press man teams in college football, if the spring showcase is indeed foreshadowing anything about the coverage tendencies for the 2026 defense. So your blitz rate would have went from 95th to 80th, which is not bad. If I'm just going strictly by the numbers that I gathered by charting the spring showcase, your stunt rate would have went from 83rd to 47th nationally. Your sim pressure rate actually would have went from 85th to 59th in your sim pressure rate. And your man coverage rates, as I said, would have put you among the top 10 highest man coverage rates out there. So essentially everything, I think all your rates, all your ag indicators and your rates of aggression with those specific tendencies would all increase, except for the single high rate probably won't increase because you don't get higher than Texas at 70+% single high rates. And your sim pressure rate, I'm not sure it's going to increase over what PK had last year. PK was at 59th in sim pressure rate. And like I said, your sim pressure rate would have been 85th. So those are the only two ag indicators where, like I said, based on the numbers that I have, you could predict a drop or a decrease in the rates of aggression with those specific concepts. But I think 4 out of 6 of my ag indicators, I would almost guarantee you're going to see an increase, if not a substantial increase, in blitz rate, stunt rate, man rate, and press rate, based on the numbers I got from the spring showcase. So if I'm predicting, just going to throw it out there, if I'm predicting next year, I would predict about 35% blitz rate. That will put you 44th in the country. I think your stunt rate should be 28% to 30%. That would put you top 25. Your sim pressure rate, probably about 18%, somewhere in there. That would be 76th. Like I said, I'm not predicting an increase there. Your single high rate, I'm going to predict around 60 to 64%, somewhere around there. You'll be playing single high rate, which last year, like I said, you were over 70%. So I'm expecting, almost predicting a decrease there. But your man rate, I wouldn't doubt if Texas is playing man more than around 35% of the time. That would also put you top 25 man rate in the country. I bet the press rate, I bet you're around 33%. And especially red zone, especially specific third down situations. I wouldn't doubt at all if you're around 33%, which I would imagine, like I said, hard to find those numbers about who's playing press man and at what rate nationally and who are their press man leaders nationally. But that would definitely put you among the highest rates in the country in playing press man if you're doing it a third of the time defensively. Like I said, I think it's going to be more situational. Also, something I noticed, just to throw it out there to end the conversation, I think you're going to get more bumping Lance Jackson inside. Goes to those stunts and twists I was talking about. One thing I noticed in the spring showcase, a lot of Lance Jackson bumping down inside to find favorable matchups with less athletic interior offensive linemen. So watch that. They almost make it it's a pseudo NASCAR package on neutral downs. When you bump him inside and they either walk down an overhang defender on the outside of him, or they already have an edge defender outside of him and he's playing an interior gap. Watch that. Lance Jackson's going to be really important because of his versatility on that defensive front, the ability to be able to move that guy around. Also, something I noticed, when Texas played Georgia, one of Georgia's little cheat codes was what they call a 5-man face, where they basically bring down 5 defensive front guys, some of them in a 2-point stance, some of them in a 3-point stance. And sometimes they're shifting around, but essentially you're trying to force one-on-one matchups with the offensive line. You're just trying to force one-on-ones and get one-on-one matchups. And that 5-man face gave Texas problems each time they played Georgia, especially early on when they played Georgia. Saw a lot of that with Muschamp. And I think that's going to be something else that he brings from those Georgia days. No doubt about it. Also, something I think you're going to get, and we didn't see this in the spring game, but I think you'll get it. You'll get more disguise pre-snap than you got with PK, and you're going to get more movement post-snap, meaning blitzes, the stunts, the twists, and the games up front. You're going to get, guys coming from the second level, maybe even guys coming from the third level. I could see them, loving the way Jelani McDonald blitzes and bringing some second and third level blitzes. So I just think that's what you're going to get with Muschamp. And like I said, the spring showcase did foreshadow a few of those things. Before we get out here, let's thank our friends over at Duck Camp real quick. We appreciate our friends at Duck Camp, and you will as well. Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for those Saturday kickoffs. Born right here in the great city of Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook 'em horns. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com. Thank you very much to our friends at Duck Camp. Thank you to Matthew for twisting and tweaking the dials behind the scenes. He's the real MVP. And thanks to each and every one of you for watching and for listening. For Matthew and for our friends at Duck Camp, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babies. Until next time. Hook 'em horns.
Hey guys, Blake Monroe here from Coffee and Football. YouTube thinks that you're going to like this video right here. And if the algorithm knows ball, it's a good one. So go check it out. And then don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button.